All right, what we're going to do is I'm going to add clay to this pinch pot for the designs. But first of all, I'm going to go ahead and sign it. Sometimes it's nice to get the signature out of the way, and so I'm going to address that now. This is a quill from a porcupine, which you don't have to have that to sign your pots. I do, just it's kind of neat to have it. A ballpoint pen that's ran out of ink, a sharp one for the fine point, works really well. But what I'm going to do when I'm signing my name, I think it's important to have your regular signature. And when pulling the clay that kind of went up with a little bit of burrs, I'm kind of pulling it away. And if it goes in the line, it's okay. I have no problem with that. But this is a great time to sign your name. And I think it's very, very important to have a signature that is legible. So when somebody's filling out a check and they can write, they know how to spell your name when they're buying your piece. And I think it's important that it's your normal signature, not some squiggle that is a symbol that means who you are, because people look at it and go, what in the heck is that? Instead of actually looking and seeing your name at the bottom. I think it's important that if you're not proud enough to put a signature that you can actually read, something might be wrong with that. You need to actually have a legible signature. All right, now I'm going to get to adding clay. And I'm going to roll out. I've dampened the table so that the clay is not going to dry out as I'm rolling the clay out. So I'm going to take the clay, take a small piece of clay, and I'm going to squeeze it into a coil shape. That's the easiest way to make a coil. If you squeeze it, I'm turning and squeezing, and then I'm going to roll it out. When you're rolling a coil, it's nice to use the entire hand instead of part of the hand. Most students just use their fingers and the coil will go flat. If you let the coil go one complete revolution all the way around, most of the time it will stay round. Now what I'm going to do, this is getting to be too big, so I'm going to cut this in half. Don't have to have that much clay. And I'm going to let the ends go into a nice point, leaving the center thick and the ends pointed. And again, it's probably going to end up ending up too much. I'm going to take that, pull it to the side, and then I'm going to point, make these edges go into a nice point here. Now, this is just something that I kind of like to do, so I'm making it thin on the ends, thicker in the middle on purpose, so whenever I'm designing my pot, it can actually go to a nice ending as I'm putting it on. Now the clay is nice and wet, so that I don't really have to slip and score, but I am going to address that if you have a little bit drier clay, you can actually slip and score so that it will stay on. But what I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this so that you don't have to slip and score. So what I've got, I'm just kind of pressing it on, creating hopefully an interesting design. And I've got the piece starting here with the, now I'm going to knit down one side. I'm going to probably go to the back side here. I'm going to knit one side down so that the inside you'll have a separation, a line separation, and on the outside will be attached down. If your clay is if your clay is wet, it doesn't have to be slip and scored, but it does need to be pressed down. And so what I'm doing is I'm knitting the bottom edge, smoothing the bottom edge, getting rid of the seam on the outside, leaving the seam on the inside, so it actually becomes part of the design. And you can actually, it almost looks like a layer of clay instead of a coil once you start pressing it down. This is one technique. It's not the only technique that you can use when you're adding clay, but sometimes it's kind of a nice way to do it. And I'm looking at the design of the coil as I'm pressing it in, because sometimes it moves a little bit as I'm pressing it on. Looking at the ending of that coil, and the coil's moving, but I'm also aware of that so that I'm still creating a nice design as I'm moving the coil and knitting down this back edge. And this will be secure. It shouldn't fall off during the firing. If you knit the back edge, it's not going to fall off. So that I have the design as it wraps around, kind of a snake looking shape. I could add more of those. I could add more on the back side. I can go in circles. I can go in whatever design. Probably some type of a curve, since I started out with a curve. Now what I'd like to do is to show you a different way to attach. If I do that on this pot, it's probably not going to work as well as if I would have continued the design around in this method. But I would like to show you if I was going to attach just coils. I'm going to take the previous coils I've already worked with. What I can do, I take a toothbrush and I've got some slip, and I have slip, always have slip already made in my little container. It's a little bit on the thick side, but it works well. It's the same kind of clay that I'm working with, and I'm using a toothbrush. So I'm going to scratch the surface on the coil and add a little bit of slip on here as well. And if I know where it's going to go, and what I can do is say, okay, this is where I want it to be right here. If I was going to just attach it vertically, I put the slip on, press it on, and that lets me know where to score this surface. Scratch this surface. Support the inside, press the coil on. Pressing it on, and then we'll take just a table knife, and I would take these edges down. I'm just going to take a little bit of the clay and pull the clay down to the surface and pull away, and that allows this edge to be nice and clean. So it looks like there's a seam there, but there's not. I knitted that edge down, and I'm going to do the same thing with this edge on the inside. I'm going to pull the edge down, flat with the clay, and then pull away. I'm taking the entire knife and just putting it right on that coil and pulling away to create a nice clean edge. Instead of waiting till later to do that, I can take my finger, go in and kind of clean it up a little bit to make it look nice. And so that can become part of the design. Whatever you want to do with this would be up to you. If I wanted to add circle, all of a sudden I'm seeing a circle over here, more geometric shapes, that'd be one way to do it. This is not coming off. It's not coming off anytime soon. When it's during the firing, it won't come off. And I tell my students that if the coils fall off during the firing, I deduct points from their original grade when I grade these. So that they need to stay on. It would be kind of nice. That would be your assignment, is to add clay. And I want you to, as 90% of the design should be added. And can you add clay inside? Sure, you can attach it on the rim. I would avoid coming away from the surface at this point. I would prefer it to be attached to the surface instead of like handles and things coming away. If you have to do that, I would accept it, but you have to make sure that the handle itself or appendage is sticking off dries slowly, because if it dries too quickly, that will cause it to crack and fall off. So there's two different ways to attach clay to the surface to create designs.